session. At Royal Roads University, before every session, we like to acknowledge that Royal Roads University campus is located in the traditional land of the Esquimalt and the Songhees ancestors and family. It is with our gratitude that we now learn and work here, where the past, the present, and the future of Indigenous and non-Indigenous students, faculty, and staff come together. And we're very grateful about this opportunity. Today, this morning, we have a very exciting session about immigration advising. And I have two of my colleagues. We have Kelsey Phillips, she's one of our international enrollment advisors. And we have Dranna Brown. She's our manager of student engagement. So they are going to, how the session is going to go, they are going to provide some details for you. And at the end, we have a Q&A. So please type all your questions in the chat and we will make sure that we are covering them at the end of the session. So Dranna and Kelsey, over to you.
Wonderful. Thanks, Andrea, for the intro, and thanks everyone for joining us. Before we jump into it, I'll just do a little bit more of an intro about myself and my work here at Royal Roads. So again, my name is Kelsey Phillips. I work in the International Admissions and Enrollment Services Office, specifically as an international enrollment advisor, supporting prospective students in their journey, answering questions about, our specific programs, who Royal Roads is, what we specialize in, admission requirements, and helping students make a decision of whether Royal Roads in a specific program is a good fit for them. I am also an alumni of Royal Roads and have been working here for over 10 years. A lot of my work over the years has been supporting international students in their journey, and that's kind of where my interest and passions lie. I've also been a regulated international student immigration advisor, which is a RISIA, for just over 4 years now, and the presentation today will dive a little bit more into what that means and what that means for you as a student here. Over to you, Dranna.
And hello, everyone. As Andrea said, my name is Dranna Brown. I've also been at Royal Roads for just over 10 years, and I work in the Student Services Department. So most of my work focuses on welcoming students to campus through orientation, as well as a whole range of supports while you're here. But the piece that I'm really excited to talk to you about today is the work that I get to do as an immigration advisor. So, like Kelsey, I am also a regulated international student immigration advisor, a RISIA. I've been so for also just over 4 years. And the whole team of immigration advisors at Royal Roads are RISIAs. That's our lovely smiling faces looking at you from in front of Hatley Castle there. There are also other immigration professionals that you might hear about. Those are regulated Canadian immigration consultants, or RCICs, as well as immigration lawyers. All of those of us that work as professionals in this field do so because the Canadian law requires that if you're providing immigration advice for a fee, you have to have this special training and certification so that as students or as people in the world, that what you're getting is accurate because it's such an important topic. So as I said, all of us that are immigration advisors at Royal Roads have this specific designation for student advising. If you're looking for other support through an RCIC or an immigration lawyer, those services are available privately and for a fee, but they're outside Royal Roads and they're not provided as part of the student experience. I'm going to pass it over to Kelsey, who's going to talk a little bit more about the differences between those kind of roles.
Great, thank you. Next slide, please. So it's really important to understand how a RISIA can support you in your journey to Canada and while you're here in Canada. So a RISIA scope of practice can support students in the following areas. So study permit, initial study permit applications, co-op and internship work permits, post-grad work permits, temporary resident visas, electronic travel authorizations, permits and visas for your spouse and your family if you choose to bring them here to Canada. So as mentioned, it's really important to understand that, if you're, what we do as RISIAs here is help you interpret the Immigration Canada policies and advise on options that are available to you. But if you are looking for someone to complete, say, your initial study permit application or represent you in that process, this is when you would hire outside professional advice from an immigration consultant or lawyer. Things that we don't fall within our scope of practice as RISIAs would be things like permanent residencies, so federal express entry programs, the BC provincial nominee program, citizenship options, permits not related to student status or immigration documents for other countries. And again, completing application forms on your behalf to Immigration Canada. So this is a quick summary of what the RISIA team at Royal Roads can help you do and what we can't do. And now Dranna will walk you through the supports and resources available in the various stages in your journey.
So the support that RISIAs provide is available to students at any stage of the journey with Royal Roads, from before you apply, when you maybe just have questions about your immigration status, all the way up until you graduate, and all the time that is in between. There's a number of different ways that we provide that support. Some of that is self-serve. We have a whole number of online resources that we've created on the Royal Roads website that help you go step by step through a number of applications or answer frequently asked questions that we get from students. And that's accessible anytime, as well as information about where to find things on the Immigration Canada, Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada, IRCC website. Another way that we provide support is through group workshops and orientation sessions. So as students are just starting programs, that's when we get a lot of questions about what does all this immigration information mean? What is it? How do I understand my study permit? So we provide group sessions at orientation and workshops throughout programs when we know that there are times where there's lots of the same question or where students are maybe going through the same application altogether. And so we do that in more of a group session. As Kelsey mentioned, RISIAs cannot provide advice around permanent residency. And so because of that, we also regularly bring in immigration lawyers or immigration consultants to provide information sessions about permanent residency. Those information sessions help you understand what your options are, what those pathways to permanent residency may be, or what might be coming after you're done a program. And those happen throughout the year. And we have some recorded sessions that are also on our website as well. And so in addition to the group supports and the self-serve supports, you can also work with an immigration advisor one-on-one. So sometimes the questions that you have are very specific to your situation, or you need to kind of talk it out and explore different options. In that case, you can book a one-on-one appointment with an immigration advisor, and we can support you in a really hands-on and personal way. I'm gonna pass it back to Kelsey to talk a little bit more about study permits.
Great, thank you. So a couple of things to think about when preparing to apply for your study permit. So, excuse me. So you will need admission to Royal Roads before applying for the study permit. So that's why we encourage you to apply well in advance, so you can get admission decision from us before and get the admission letter before applying for the study permit. So the best practice is to apply to us at least 6 to 8 months, if not longer, before your preferred program start date. Again, this will allow us, the admissions office, enough time to process your application, give you an admission decision, and then you can proceed in applying for your study permit if you're admitted to your program of choice. In regards to the Royal Roads application process, I just wanted to highlight that the processing time does not actually start until all of the supporting documents are received and considered complete. And processing times can vary throughout the year. So again, that's why it's really important to plan ahead. Application document requirements vary depending on the program that you're applying to. So reviewing the application requirements page on the program specific page on our website is recommended. Use that as your guideline to help prevent any unnecessary delays in us starting that review process. My colleagues in the international admissions team are actually doing a session in about an hour that I would highly encourage you to attend, and they're going to be going through some tips and tricks to submit a strong and successful application and help prevent any unnecessary delays. So I'd recommend attending that as well. In preparation for applying, it's also recommended that you check the estimated study permit processing time on the Immigration, Refugee and Citizenship Canada website. My colleague will pop the link in the chat box here, and you can check that out because it does vary by country, and also to the impacts of COVID-19 right now are creating potentially some additional delays. While you're waiting to hear the admission decision on your application from Royal Roads, I would recommend making yourself familiar with the IRCC website and the application requirements. So there are step-by-step tutorials, there are checklists that you can go through, and some FAQs. Once you have your official letter of acceptance from us, you're ready to submit your study permit application. So the documents required would be a valid passport, financial proof that you can support yourself and your family members if you choose to bring them with you while you're here in Canada. And you will also require biometrics. You may also require biometrics and a medical exam. So it's best to also check the visa office instructions for your country or region for the local requirements. So part of the application process may be submitting a letter of explanation or a study plan. I would strongly encourage you to put a lot of time and thought into this document. This is a critical piece when the visa officer is reviewing your application. You want to think about addressing your motivations of why you want to study in Canada, why you've zeroed in on Royal Roads and the specific program that you've applied to, and how you plan on funding your studies and supporting yourself while you're here, and that you understand the responsibilities of being an international student in Canada. Next slide, please. So what happens if you don't get your study permit in time? So sometimes this can happen. It really depends, on IRCC's processing time. Maybe you received your admission decision a little bit too late in order to apply for your study permit and get a decision in time. So it's really important to keep the International Admissions Office up to date regarding your status. There are a couple options available to students in this situation, and that includes the option to defer your admission to the next available start date. This does not mean that you need to reapply again to Royal Roads and submit a new application and supporting documents. It just means that we move your complete application and admission decision forward. So again, deferral is a simple process, and it's just an email to our international admissions team, but make sure that you let them know before your program start date so we don't cancel your admission. Also, study permit refusals can happen, and it is possible to overcome them depending on the reasons. So it'd be a new application, and a RISIA, we can provide, just some general guidance on, submitting a fresh application to IRCC and addressing those reasons for refusal. Or again, it might be best to seek professional advice outside of Royal Roads from an immigration consultant or lawyer. All in all, the international admissions team is here to support you, provide you options, as well the RISIA team in the situation that you don't receive the decision in time or you receive a refusal. We can work with you on a personal basis depending on your situation to give you the best option based on your personal situation and your future goals. Next slide, please.
So Kelsey talked about study permits, and this last slide before we move into questions is an opportunity for us to talk about just some of the other immigration pieces that you maybe know about, but maybe you don't, and that you may want to think about as you are planning to become a student. One that's important to know is that if you are a student on a study permit in Canada, most international students are eligible to work while you're here, but there are some special ins and outs of that. So there is IRCC considers a difference between on-campus and off-campus work, and the eligibility for those two different streams can vary depending on the kind of program that you're in. And so the work while you're a student is an important opportunity to be able to experience the Canadian labor market, to gain important skills, to earn a little bit of extra money, but it's not guaranteed. And again, there are some nuance, there's some different eligibility pieces for different kinds of work. And it's also important not to count on that when you are planning your financial stability pieces for being a student in Canada. There are also options to stay and work in Canada after graduation. There is a specific program called the Post-Graduation Work Permit Program, and that is an open work permit, so it doesn't limit you to the kind of work that you can do. It's an open work permit program that graduates of certain programs are eligible to apply for. That work permit can be up to 3 years in length, and a qualifying program needs to be a program that leads to a degree or a certificate or diploma. So it needs to be a credit program that is at least 8 months long, but to be able to qualify for the 3-year work permit, it needs to be the equivalent of a 2-year program. So there are some, again, some kind of very detailed requirements for the post-graduation work permit, but most of our, or all of our on-campus degree programs are eligible for that work permit. And thank you to Alana has just put some links in the chat for you around the work eligibility as an international student. So again, some of the pieces that are important to consider is that different kinds of programs have different immigration requirements, different permit requirements, or are differently eligible for certain things like work. So for example, short programs, that is programs that are less than 6 months in length for the entire duration, don't require a study permit. However, if you are applying for a short program and think that you might stay in Canada after that program, we strongly recommend that you apply for a study permit before that short program. It allows you to just continue your time in Canada, and again, may make you eligible for some work while you're here, even on a short program. if you are looking at an online program, so a program that is completely online and there's no requirement to be on campus, in those cases, you actually are not eligible for a study permit because you're not required to come to Canada at any point. So a program that is 100% online is not actually eligible for a study permit. There is, if your program is only online because of COVID and it's intended to be back in person in the future, that is considered an on-campus program. So that online program piece doesn't apply. But if your program that you're looking at is designed to be always online, again, it's not eligible for a study permit or the other permits that we've talked about today. One of the pieces that Rural Roads is known for is our blended programs. So programs that are partly online and partly you do short stays or stretches at Rural Roads in person. And those programs do require a study permit, but depending on the way that they are constructed, may or may not be eligible for things like the post-graduation work permit. So if you're considering a blended program, I would strongly recommend that you check with RISIA to see if that aligns with your potentially longer-term immigration goals as well. As Kelsey and I both mentioned a couple of times, COVID-19 has had an impact on immigration programs and processing. IRCC has made many updates and temporary measures to help support international students on study permits, and you can view those on the IRCC website. Many of those measures are in place until the end of this calendar year. So depending on when you may be applying and starting at Royal Roads, they may or may not apply to you, but I think it's important still, it's a good idea to look at them and see what they are. And so, and for example, under those temporary measures, there are allowances for international students to be exempt from travel restrictions. So international students are eligible to travel to Canada right now with their study permit. We have been welcoming international students to Victoria since October when that regulation was changed, but international students in that case need to follow all testing and quarantine requirements. Although, you know, again, that there's a process for that, and then students are able to be in Canada while they're studying right now. So I think with that, we are going to move to questions.
Thank you, Kelsey and Dranna, for such a great presentation. So I want to encourage everyone, if you have any questions, please type those questions on the chat box and we will make sure that we will cover them. The first question that we have is, if I have two kids and I want to pursue my master's degree in Canada, can I get a visa? And I guess the question is also, can the kids get a visa, or how will be the family traveling together to Canada?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. I can answer that. So yeah, I mean, the first step instead of, you know, is getting admission to Rural Roads. So focusing in on whether Rural Roads offers a specific program that aligns with your background and interests. So if you get admitted, then you can apply for a study permit and also apply for your family at the same time. So first step, get admission to Rural Roads. Second step, apply for your study permit as well as your dependents.
Thank you, Kelsey. There is another question about, I have a study permit. Can I study with an old study permit?
Yes. So if your study permit is still valid and it was for post-secondary studies, then that study permit is still valid to study at Royal Roads. What you would need to do is simply, once you have admission to Royal Roads, is update your designated learning institution with IRCC. You can do that online through the IRCC website. And then you would renew your study permit in the future, because presumably it would expire before the end of your program.
Thank you, Dranna. We have another question about, are dependents and spouse also allowed in Canada during during the COVID-19 period?
Yes, there are allowances for families to travel and settle together in Canada, absolutely.
Thank you. There is one more question. What is the difference between a student visa and a study permit?
Good question. I think people use study visa and study permit kind of interchangeably, but what is required by international students is 2 documents. So you need a study permit to, study in Canada, and then you need a visa, which is called a TRV, a travel, what is it? Travel visa.
Temporary resident visa.
Yeah, thank you. Or an ETA, depending on the country, electronic travel authorization, to actually travel to Canada. So 2 documents are required, but some people just use the name study visa as the study permit.
Thank you. We have a question from Christian. For students who will start on campus this fall, is required to travel to Canada or government allowed to study online until December 31st? And this time will be considerable for the PGWP.
Yes, so under IRCC rules right now for COVID-19, all study that's online from outside Canada will continue to count towards postgrad work permit eligibility until the end of December 2021. But that, of course, will be dependent on how your program is offered. But from the government's perspective, absolutely, that they have committed to the end of 2021 for all of the COVID allowances right now. So that online study from outside Canada, that will count.
Thank you. We have a question from Jacqueline. So she wants to say thank you to Kelsey and Dranna for such a comprehensive presentations. Do you have any information regarding extension of validity of IELTS results from 2 years to 3 years? Do you have any information about that, or that would be better for them to reach out directly after the session?
Yeah, I think that's more related to the application process. So yeah, we can certainly, I can help with that question after the webinar. If you want to send an email to us, we can pop the email address in the chat box.
Thank you. For postgraduate programs, do we have in-house work opportunities? I guess people are looking if can you be working within the university while you do your program?
There are some employment opportunities at Royal Roads, but they are limited during programs because we are a fairly small campus. We don't have big dining halls or places like that where you might think about students working on a regular basis, but there are employment opportunities. And for example, within the area that I work, we always have usually 3 to 5 students working with us at any given time. So there are some employment opportunities for sure.
Thank you. We have a lot of questions in the chat box. I can see over 25 questions to go. So I just want to be acknowledged that right now is 7:01. So Kelsey and Dranna, if you're okay, maybe can we spend another 5 minutes answering all the questions? Well, most of the questions that we can. And if we can answer your question, we would be more than happy to share the emails in the chat box, and you can reach out directly to Dranna and Kelsey after. How many years of work permit is entitled for a master degree? I assume after you complete the master degree, what kind of work permit people can access to?
So you take it, Kelsey.
Sure. I think it depends on the length of the master's program, but typically, if the master's program is comparable to a 2-year program, then a 3-year postgrad work permit.
I know there's a few questions about program specific and the requirements for each program. So if you're planning to apply to one of those programs at Royal Roads, I highly recommend to reach out to our enrollment advisors, and they will be able to provide more details about the programs, the application requirement for each program, and how we can support you to find the best fit for you. Let's see. What is the length of the PWGP corresponding to the MGM program?
So that program is generally eligible for a 3-year postgrad work permit, particularly the 18-month completion of the postgrad of the MGM. So the 18-month MGM is eligible for a 3-year work permit because it's equivalent to a 2-year master's program.
We have a question as a follow-up of using an old student permit. Which step is first when using an old permit? Change the DLI or drop off the old school?
So the steps for that would be admission to your new school. And once you are admitted and you have that letter of admission, then you can update your status with IRCC. Now, if you're still completing your other program, if you are still actively enrolled in your other institution, you would wait until you have completed studies at your current institution and then change the DLI.
I'm happy to put a link here in the chat box. On the IRCC website, they do have a good step-by-step process and screenshots on how to do that. I'll just put it in right now.
Thank you, Kelsey. So I think I'm going to cover 3 more questions just to be mindful about time. But thank you so much. I see so many questions, but we are going to do our best, and hopefully some of the information we are sharing right now is also helping you to answer your questions. If someone applied for the MGM in September intake, how soon can they come into Canada?
So we usually recommend arriving, maybe 2 to 4 weeks before the start of your program, so that you have time to get settled. Right now, there is the 2-week quarantine requirement for anyone traveling. So you would need to build that in to your plans. But if you arrive too early, you will need to explain to when you cross the border, your intention for being in Canada early. And it's important to note that your full eligibility for things like working does not actually start until you start your program. So that early arrival time really is time to transition and get settled.
What if I get the visa, but I don't get the study permit? Is that a common case if someone applies for a student permit, but they only get the visa and not the student permit?
Yeah, typically not. Generally, you apply for both of them at the same time, and they're processed at the same time. But in that situation, yeah, I guess it would depend if maybe you didn't receive your study permit in time for the program start date. And then, like I said, we can discuss and look at options of deferral, giving a little bit more time, giving Immigration Canada a little bit more time to process that. In the situation that the study permit might be refused, then again, options in speaking with someone from the RISIA team or seeking advice, professional immigration advice outside of Royal Roads.
There's a few questions that are very specific about each person, case, and situation. So I highly recommend for those to reach out directly to Kelsey and Dranna, and they will be happy to assist you in your specific case. Let me see. I see Alana is helping us a lot in the chat. Thank you so much, Alana. Okay. Well, it sounds like we answered most of the questions. There was a question about quarantine due to COVID-19. So I don't know, Dranna, I know this is not about immigration, but I don't know if you have a little more of details that you can expand about how that is looking currently. Like things can change in the future, but what is the latest information?
Absolutely, I can answer that. So right now, what is required is that you test negative for COVID-19 before you depart from on your flight to Canada. You're tested again as soon as you arrive, you're tested at the airport. And then you head into a minimum of a 3-day hotel quarantine. So you're required to book with a government approved hotel for an initial quarantine. Once you receive the results of that test that you got at the airport on arrival, if it's negative, you're then able to move to a secondary quarantine space. So that can be a home quarantine if you have, for example, a private apartment rented already, or it may be at a secondary hotel, an Airbnb, or, for example, staying with extended family, something like that. And that is for another 10 days at least. You have a follow-up at-home COVID test to take during that period of time. And once that test comes back negative, then you are able to complete your quarantine at that time. So it's a 2-phase quarantine procedure, one at a government-approved hotel and one at privately arranged accommodations.
Thank you so much, Dranna and Kelsey. Thank you so much for everybody that attended this session. We have so many questions in the chat box. Some of them were very specific, so please reach out to our team and we'll be happy to assist you and provide more details. And Kelsey just add another link into the chat box. So thank you so much, Kelsey. Anything else that you would like to add, like final words, Kelsey or Dranna, about the presentation, or anything else that you would like to share with those people that might consider Royal Roads as the place to study?
Yeah, I mean, certainly if you're considering Royal Roads, reach out to an international enrollment advisor. We can certainly work with you, talk about, your background and a program that might be a good fit. Also to, this COVID-19 situation, yes, it continues to be ongoing. Hopefully we're, looking at the end of this fairly soon here, but IRCC has made some great measures still allowing international students to travel to Canada at this time, and also temporary measures, recognizing online learning and towards postgrad work permit eligibility until the end of the year. So don't let that discourage you. Don't let the situation discourage you.
And I will just say thank you for your time and your questions. And I hope that we see you in Victoria at some point in the future.
Thank you so much. We have a little surprise before we move to the next session. So we have a giveaway to give to all of those people that join us in the first session of the day. So this is how it's going to work. At count to 3, I'm going to ask you to do something. And the first person that completes that task, it will get a little gift from Royal Roads University. And we will reach out to you to get your email as well as your address. So at count of 3, the first person that used the party emoji. Kelsey. He's the first person that I saw on my, it was, I hope I pronounced your name properly, and I apologize if I don't do. Ajay Bishmana. Sorry, Ajay Bishmana. So Ajay, thank you so much. And thank you so much, everybody that joined us today. And please, Ajay, I will connect with you so you can share your information and we can send you this gift. Thank you, Kelsey and Dranna. And we have a 5 minutes break, actually 3 minutes break, and we will go next to our following session.
Thanks, everyone.